Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, not too much. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Feel free to call me Ty. What's your name?
Okay, I'm Jen.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, Brad should be hopping on here in a little bit too. Where are you based out of?
Boston.
Oh, cool. I love Boston. I haven't been in several years, but I used to go out to the Cape all the time as a
Oh
kid.
yeah, yeah. I just went there a few weeks ago with some friends. It's really nice. It's
Nice.
peaceful.
Yeah.
Hey,
Come on,
Brad.
Brad.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
All is well out here in Joshua Tree. We've been kind of posting up shop for the past month or so. It's
Oh, that's
hot.
cool. Yeah, I've never been there before.
It's a really interesting spot in many good ways, some kind of boring ways, uh, but there's nothing like it in the country. It's almost like when you get into the park, at least it's very Martian in the look and the aesthetic and the vibe of it. And then the town itself is a mix of people from all over Southern California and the world that come in, and a mix of locals. So when you go to some of the spots out here, it's kind of like the Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars. It's a bunch of fucking characters from
Oh
all over
wow.
the place. You never know what you're gonna get.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, Boston is kind of like that too. You get like a mixture of all types of people here.
Yeah, I used to live out in New York, and my brother and his family are out kind of outside of the Boston area. So I know that city pretty well too. In a former life, I traveled around a lot for work. It was kind of like basically being on tour for way too long. But I know the ins and outs of a few of the different cities in this country. But
Oh yeah. Well, I guess I'll jump right into it and have you guys talk a little bit about the latest releases you have. I have to say they're really cool. They're like a modern sound, but kind of mixed in with some like 80s new wave, maybe. I don't know if that's how you would describe it.
um, we get it's interesting that I thought you were going to hit the nail on the head with a comment that we get a lot, especially in relation to these two songs from people that don't know each other, and it's like a modern sounding version of Depeche Mode is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's a comparison that we absolutely are floored by, because it's a band that's myself, Ty, and Jay, who's not on the call, have influenced our lives. But it's kind of like any form of art. You want to try and add something new to the conversation in your creativity and the way that you speak about kind of themes that cut across people's lives, no matter where they are. So we kind of have taken that approach to when we think about our songs and the lyrical content and the feel. How can we try and take these genres that have influenced from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 2000s, from today, and kind of fuse them together to add our own unique voice in a way that we hope is interesting to people and that they resonate with.
Yeah, and I think one thing about the Depeche Mode comparison is, even referencing the 80s, that was never really our intention. I think when we set out, it just kind of happened organically, which I think speaks to just, every individual artist, just the influences that come out, whether it's intended or not. And I think that when we started hearing Depeche Mode, that comparison from, multiple people from other parts of the world, all around the same time, I was like, oh shit, I guess it kind of does, but that was never part of the conversation. It just kind of happened, and we're very happy with what we ended up with.
And thematically, because three of us in the band, we definitely come from different perspectives and backgrounds. There's a lot of commonalities that we have, but there's something about being able to let each song come to life the way that they are, without the way that it should be, without forcing a square peg in a round hole to try and have this sound, or resonate with these fans, or anything like that. We really take let's just go. In the songwriting process, it kind of comes out organically, in that I play bass. I'm a very, very terrible guitar player. I can make a couple beats here and there, But we'll start with these ideas and just see what direction they go in with enough confidence and faith in our artistic vision and what ultimately we are happy with, that this process will kind of play itself out. So, you know, the first release certainly has, you know, this kind of modern 80s electro new wave type sound to it. There's a connection in our next release, Personal, which comes out on September 17th, that we feel really good about. You know, these songs we've listened to them a couple of times, and you know, it's always you always feel good when you don't get tired of the songs that you know kind of had in your catalog for a minute before they were able to come out. And the pandemic certainly put a little bit of a delay on that, but it's a long-winded way of saying that there's some stuff that we have that I think is, you know, there's a tie that binds all of these songs of ours in the project and what Levvels is, but we are not trying to be bound by any one genre or any one feel or tied down by that, because our approach becomes so organic that we don't want to, you know, take what we think is a great song and tweak it to the point where it's not recognizable to fit anyone's expectations.
Yeah, well, speaking about bass, I got to listen to the second single, Personal, and it has a funky bass groove on that. How did you come up with that?
That song, that was interesting in that we went into the studio with a totally different vision of what song we wanted to work on. And it was just one of those things, kind of, you know, to the point of not trying to force anything. You know, we played around with this other bass line that we thought was kind of like this dark groove with this beat that we felt was a little bit hypnotic, but, you know, Ty and I were in the studio with the guys from Heavy, and it wasn't working. You know, I don't know if it was just brain drain or just wasn't like our most efficient day, I guess you can say. So we totally scrapped it, and we just kind of started sitting around and playing a couple of chord progressions over and over.
Yeah, on that little like Casio key. I mean, it literally was, you know, the size of a Casio keyboard that you'd have when you were a kid. And Jordan just kind of started playing some chords, and I started singing what ended up being the kind of the breakdown hook where we say don't keep it all, or don't take it all so personal. And then I was really happy with us that we were able to pivot, because I was concerned that after we'd spent like this entire day working on this idea, you know, just starting over, because I was about to fly back to Chicago the next morning, and instead of being defeated, we just kind of rolled with it and got as much done and got kind of the beginning of that idea down. And then I came back to Chicago, Brad wrote that bass line, and it really just kind of worked that way. We did it remote for a while, because I think we wrote that in tracked in February, and then the next month the pandemic hit. And so we were doing this all virtually for some time until I could come back out. But yeah, I mean, I was just proud of us. And I think, to Brad's point earlier, being able to just kind of roll with the punches. And even though we'd spent a ton of time on the song that we went out there to record initially, just being able to be aware enough to put that to the side and keep moving forward. I think it's really important.
And we actually paid homage to the little Casio keyboard, and you can hear it in kind of the bridge of Personal. You just kind of hear like the three notes playing kind of in the background. But like, you know, Ty said, this was where it's Keep Me Alive. That started with a bass line and a drum beat that I put together. Personal, it came after Ty kind of came up with like the top line as we were playing around with this little keyboard. And I was sitting there and I was like, I'm just going to play something. And, you know, when you kind of think about it in your head a little bit, and it came out, and we're just like, oh shit, that's good.
And how was the experience?
Says the bass player.
All right. How was the experience making the music video? Was it fun or kind of grueling?
You mean the one for Personal?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was. And, you know, the woman in kind of the blue hue is my wife, Tilo. And, you know, we knew that we wanted to get something done, but we filmed that in, what was it, May of last year, like right in the heat, or right in the center of the pandemic. And the couple that helped us shoot it, Jason Robinette, Natasha Gornick, are old friends of both Brad and I, and they're professional photographers and videographers and do, huge campaigns, people that we never would have probably been able to fit into their schedule, let alone afford. And they just happened to be back there from the Chicago area. They were back in town, and the schedules just lined up, and we did it distanced in like the dark basement of their parents' vacation home in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is like not too far from the city. And it just all really worked out. And I think it was such a cool story to think about, like all these people that knew each other, never had an opportunity to work together, and still finding a way to create in the midst of the pandemic.
It's kind of magical in that sense. So the reason why it's basically just Ty in the videos, because I'm in LA and we shot it like May, June of last year, when we couldn't really travel. We didn't know what was going on, but we wanted to kind of be prepared for what happens, when things kind of opened up. And Ty, this is a quick side story that you don't know about, and just the coincidental connection between Ty and Natasha, myself and Natasha, and how this all played out. I met Natasha at a friend's wedding, but I have like this uncanny ability. Natasha and I have this uncanny ability of running into each other in New York at random times. I just got back from New York yesterday, I think. And
wait, did you see her?
I bumped into her at the Met at this new Woman of Photography exhibit, and she was like, holy fuck. And the last time I saw her was I bumped into her on 23rd Street, just walking down the street in New York without any plan. So when Natasha was available, it just kind of like having that type of just interstellar connection that we're just like, yeah, let's do this. And her work is, it's definitely cutting edge. It's, she has this kind of fetish photography practice that in addition to her videography and directorial skills, that we thought the energy and kind of the battle between kind of like, the connection that someone has with their partner, yet the conflict between, wanting more, wanting something else. We thought that it would play together nicely, and we're just really stoked to see how it all turned out.
Yeah, they both did a phenomenal job, and we're super happy with the final product. So we're excited to release that now in a few weeks.
Very cool. And I want to ask you a little bit about your love of music. Is there a classic album that you never get sick of? Like one album you can always go back to and listen to over and over again?
For me, yeah, my parents were born in the 40s. My dad was in Vietnam, and they adopted me kind of later, as they were approaching 40. And so while a lot of my friends' parents were listening to, shit from the 80s and all that, my parents were still like Fleetwood Mac, Simon and Garfunkel, that kind of like folky shit from like, the 60s. And so for me, like the album Rumors by Fleetwood Mac is something that I listen to all the time, and have
That's
never
a classic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty safe answer, of course, but I really do mean that. Like,
oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to see them when they just got back together with my parents, and just seeing my dad light up and dance to music for probably the first time in my life. About 6 or 7 years ago, they played at United Center, and it just kind of solidified it for me.
Very cool.
For me, the one I can't get tired of is it's classic, and it's an easy answer, but it's The Strokes' Is This It? And it was just kind of, I used to live in New York, and New York was this city that, I was born in the Chicago area, I grew up in the Bay Area, but New York always kind of had this magical spell over me. And when I first started spending time out there, that album was just played at almost every bar we went into. It was like, oh, who's this? And it was just really, I just can't not affiliate that album with just the energy of the city and the excitement of what the uncertainty that exists within those streets can lead to, and just the role that place has played in my life. So I can't not listen to that at least, once a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and thinking full circle now that you know Julian pretty well. Brad introduced me to Julian Casablancas at the same Lollapalooza that we met Renee, who's a manager who kind of hooked us up with Heavy. And that was a childhood, dream of mine too, meeting those guys. Going to an after party, I sat down at a table with him, Beck, and Win Butler from Arcade Fire, and I almost lost my mind. I was like,
Wow.
you're the soundtrack of, my young adulthood, and but yeah, I think Julian, they shot a video for the Voids in your place in LA, Brad?
Yeah.
So watch that.
I started playing in high school, and I grew up like a skateboarder, punk rock. I picked up bass for the first time when I was like 13. And whenever, I think whether it's guitar, bass, or drums, everyone just kind of, maybe not everyone, but I tend to think that musicians want to have this just starry-eyed look in their face when they see their instrument for it's theirs, and they want to be the best that they possibly can be. So like I immediately started digging into who like the best bass players are, and naturally that leads, like Primus was like, Les Claypool was like, holy shit, this guy is doing crazy stuff. When you start getting outside of like your punk rock mentality, like number one on that list becomes like Jaco Pastorius. So I'm like, dude, this guy is nuts. Like, I want to be like the second coming of Jaco and Les mixed together. Problem was I sucked. But that led me down like a path of, I was in jazz band in high school. I played in punk rock bands, but I was like the go-to bass player in high school because I was like one of two, and it's the coolest one. But I went to high school with Jeff Kite, who's the keyboardist from the Voids. And there were a couple of other people in that class that just kind of branched off and kind of got involved in music. But when Jeff started playing with Julian, I got to meet, I've known those guys for like 10 some odd years now. So it's kind of like going from, being like a super fan of an artist to being like, oh yeah, dude, like you can like borrow my shirt for this video shoot because it's what you have isn't working for you. Sorry, Jules. Keep that between us.
Oh, that's really cool. And Ty, who would you say is like the most inspirational frontman of a band?
Oh God. I mean, I think that's kind of a tough question, right? Because the question of who's the best singer and the best frontman, it sometimes does not overlap. I remember being a kid, and the first CD I ever bought with my own money was Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And just, and Axl certainly had an interesting voice, but just the energy on stage was something that I hadn't really ever seen before. And at least, I'm 36 now, so that came out, I'm thinking 91, I believe. So I was like first, second grade, I think, when that album came out. And I was always, and still am, kind of in private, just like a pretty, even keeled, quiet, introverted kind of guy. And I just aspired to having that kind of confidence and that kind of just command of the stage and of the songs. And even if he screwed up the vocal line or didn't hit the note, it didn't really matter, just because of the way he made you feel. And that's really what got me, wanting to be in a rock band, I think, for the first time. And so that's kind of where it started for me.
Oh yeah, I think it's important, for frontmen to really have conviction and just kind of command the crowd with their charisma and, I don't know, I guess confidence, of course, But yeah, I remember watching like Wembley. I think it was live at Wembley. Like, as you can tell, I'm a big Queen fan, and just the way Freddie Mercury just didn't give a shit,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's right up there. I mean, but he actually had the voice too, and he still had all that. And I was, I guess not late to Queen, but I didn't really appreciate them fully until, probably my 20s, and just watching, the Farm Aid show, like one of the last ones. Just I've watched that footage over and over and over again, and just the nonstop energy and the dynamics from one song to another of his voice and what that guy could do. I mean, there's never going to be another.
Yeah, sure. I remember there's a part where he said "fuck you" to the crowd, and they cheered. I'm like, only he can get away with that.
I know, right? Yeah.
So is there anything else in the pipeline for you guys? aside from, you know, the upcoming single? And are you guys hoping to eventually do some live shows and all that?
Yeah, so we, you know, we're in the studio a couple weeks ago. Again, we're writing new stuff. We feel really, really good about what we put together. I'm actually heading to Chicago on Thursday. So we are going to, for the first time, and I don't even want to know. I don't want to think about how long it's been. Yeah. We're going to get in the rehearsal space. We're getting our kind of live show, you know, run through that, figure out what fits. But we've got a really nice collection of songs beyond just Keep Me Alive and Personal that we think kind of tell both an interesting story and will hopefully, you know, people can will respond to, and that, you know, they feel connected to both the music, the stories that we're telling lyrically, and the overall vibe and aesthetic. So we're hoping, yeah, I was in New York this past week and got together with our manager and a couple of other different people who we are looking to, you know, get a show put together out there. You know, I'm from Chicago. That's where Ty and Jay are. You know, we certainly have some people saying, when the hell are you guys going to play? So we're looking to, you know, start playing out before the end of the year, hopefully November, possibly December. And we, you know, we'll have another release after Personal coming out that was kind of slated for around that same time, late November, early December. And we, you know, we feel good about where we're at and what we're going to be putting out. I'll confirm the where we're at part after we rip through these songs and see how that goes. But I feel good about, you know, the conversations we've been kind of having in our group texts and the songs we're trading back and forth, which is kind of really how we do it. You know, Jay and Ty are in the same city, so Ty will go over to Jay's, and Jay has been really just putting together some really great beats. You know, he handles drums and synths and does a lot of the production work on these tracks, and we feel good about it. Ty, I hope you say there's something similar, because if not, we might have problems.
Well, I know I'm going to be great at rehearsal on Thursday. No, I mean, we have no shortage of material. It's just about, you know, Jay works on just some other projects, and kind of the only social thing I do outside of, you know, seeing my family really is getting into the space and starting to demo, whether it's something for Levvels or not. So we have just this very long list of songs that are in the pipeline. It's just a matter of whether or not it's at the Levvels quality or not. And so that's what we're kind of sifting through now. I'm very happy with what we did in LA a few weeks ago. It's just we're trying to determine when that song will be released, if it's going to be the next one or not, but no shortage there. But no, I think getting back on stage is going to be therapeutic, to say the least, for all of us too. And I know that we have a ton of interest here and various spots around the country. So hopefully, you know, live shows will be more acceptable and the pandemic subsides and we get over everything going on right now. So we have an opportunity to share it with everybody.
And if you want to come down from Boston and get a New York show, and Jen, hit us up. We'll,
yeah, definitely have to come to Boston. There's a lot of nice venues here where I think you guys could perform.
Do a little New York, Boston, Philly run, and
there you go.
Work our way back.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm really excited to see what you guys have coming up, and I really appreciate your time chatting with me.
Yeah, thank you for setting this up. It was great talking with you as well.